You are watching Sound County Talk. Watch, share, like, subscribe. You are watching Sound County Talk. Watch, share, like, subscribe.
They are up, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and on your radio dial, where it is you are around the country. Francis Wangoi says, good morning. He's tuned in from Karatina. Don, now you will help us. He says, good morning to you, even Edna. And he says, a leaking roof in Malawi is an interesting thing. Okay, I will come into that later. Good morning to you, Don. Zeke says, good morning. Happy almost Friday. Could be a thing, isn't it? Say hi to Julie, you guys. Julie Maveka is our guest host today. You must say hello to her. By fire, by force. Abi? Kaiser Obed is also tuned in this morning and sending his greetings, tuned in and locked in as usual. Thank you very, very much. Agri Momanyi says, so we're here back to the drawing board as the cost of living matter is yet to be resolved. Wonderful country. Yes. And says, to Hamia, Tanzania. Allah. Why? Fred Otieno says, good morning, watching from South Korea. Polycarp Omondi is tuned in and says, the best 4 hours of the day. You're a good man, Polycarp. Wapilem to Kimana. Yes, he might just be there. He will be back. Do not worry. Sir George Gashoidi says, good morning, Ndu City. Edna locked in for a great discussion. Yes, Karibu. Desmond says, good morning. And our new guest, yes, that's from Desmond. This diabetes disease needs a quick attention from the health ministry. It does. Remember that it is Diabetes Awareness Month, and quite a number of people are actually suffering from complications of this particular condition. Opani Julia says, good morning. Siti Undu tuned in and from a rainy Mombasa. Yes, it's coming down in sheets this morning. Owen Bosira says, good morning, tuning from New York. This world, we have people who are pathological liars. Is it so? They lie so much to the point that they believe that their lies are true. And he says, Kenya is a den of thieves. My goodness. Why now? Good morning to Julie, says Sir George Gashoiri. Amakayo Keo says good morning as well. Victoria Nyandosi says bonjour, good people. Bonjour, bonjour. Tony Mohoho says tune in from Muthiga. Good morning, beautiful folks. Have a good one. Thank you to you too, Akiki. Arthur Wanjama says hello, beautiful Julie. If you see me in your DM, don't ignore. Anthony Onyango says good morning from Nyamisongo. Nyanisongo. Okay. Lillian Rotich says, good morning, Ndu City, tuning in from Bomet. Shout out to Eddie. Eddie, shout out to you. Thank you. Kivitz turned in from Manzoni. And Abdul Kadir Sheikh says, good morning, tuned in from Canada in Kitchener. Zachary Odira says, good morning, guys, locked in from Mombasa. Quite a number of you that we're even looking for. And Gore, I know you're tuned in from those beautiful hills of Trans Nzoia and Saboti. And I know that Wairimo is in the Bay Area in California, probably trying to go to bed at some point, but tuned into the Situation Room this morning. We see you guys. Mwenda Mpole, where are you? Good morning. Joyce Alamu, Linda Gola, all of you. We see you this morning. Karibuni and welcome as we get into it. All right. Let's kick it off. CT Proverbs still coming in from the DRC.
You inherit from the dead, not the sick. Sorry. Our proverbs for this week come from the country of DRC. There's so much.
Leave us hanging. We are used to things a certain way.
The Democratic Republic of Congo. Yes. A beautiful country.
It is.
With beautiful people. Okay. So much wealth, so much tribulation, so much turbulence. A beautiful country nonetheless. Such beautiful music. Again, such wonderful people. But here we are. Right. The proverb for today. You inherit from the dead, not the sick.
That's true. When the person is sick, they've not gone yet, eh? Expecting the person to croak it. He's like,
When someone is unwell, the likelihood is that they will get better.
Mm.
Okay? When they're dead, the likelihood of resurrecting is nil.
And
That is such an interesting proverb. It's so dark in a way because for the gift to come your way, unfortunately, a tragedy must occur.
Yes. The positive perspective you need to have on death is that it is the flip side of life. It doesn't exist in the absence of life. And it doesn't exist in the absence of new life.
Indeed.
Because there'll be a death, but there'll be a birth. So there's always a renewal taking place. And if you take the view that if you want to be philosophical about it and say, well, talk about cycle of life, it is impossible to talk about a cycle of life and talk about the renewal of life without talking about the extinguishing of life. Because it ends at some point.
It does.
The only sure thing about life, they say, is death.
Yes, the sure thing about being alive is that you will die at some point.
That's it.
Okay. And then when you think about it, then you think of the things of this world that people focus on, most of the material things. And a Latin phrase comes to mind, sic transit gloria mundi. So passes the glory of this world.
Of this world.
Yes. And you with it, of course.
This world is not my home.
That one.
I'm just a person through.
That one. Okay. Someone called Jim Reeves.
Yeah, he did sing that song. Didn't he?
He did.
Okay, let's look at the headlines. Apparently, there's turbulence. This plane is hitting some turbulence. And which plane are we talking about? It's the writing of the final report by the Ruto and Raila teams. They fly into headwinds after the groups clashed over proposals to cut the cost of living, especially fuel-related taxes and the housing levy, with some Azimio members staging a walkout as the committee took a break for further consultations. Imagine. Turbulence, walkout things. We'll look at that later. Private guards minimum pay now set at 30,000 shillings. If you hire a private guard who, number one, has not been registered, and number two, that you're not paying XXX, you could actually pay a fine for that. And the fine is pretty hefty. So there's a lot of stuff happening there in terms of how much more money you've got to pay.
This is very good news.
It's good, Cindy.
I think this is brilliant.
I applaud it completely. Yes.
Okay. When I tell you the story, you can explain the reason for your applause.
I will explain.
Fantastic. NCPB, that's the National Cereals and Produce Board, has started buying maize from farmers.
How much?
Now, they've not told us whether they've actually opened the doors to the barn, because remember, for the longest time the doors have been closed and they've not been taking anything. So essentially Kenya had no reserves, nothing. So now they've started buying, and it was said that it was 4,000 shillings. And remember, the farmers had said, I laugh in the face of 4,000 shillings. And they said, go and give somebody else. It's like we're basically giving, we've said, we planted the maize on our farms and we have now given it to you at 4,000 shillings. So they had said no. But it would appear as though there's been a softening somewhere, and now the board is buying this maize to now store it away. So we shall wait and we shall see. We'll look at the meat of some of these stories later, but let me tell you what's on the front page of some of the stories on The Nation. That still, again, Raila move jolts bipartisan talks. All right. Again, we're looking at this security guards that must earn the minimum 30,000 shillings. Some people are about to be in a bit of a mess with that. Now, these people for this fuel and the KRA and the lady, now people are still saying they've never met the other person. And it's just looking a little bit messier as the day goes by. But see, we have other things to look at, like how Kupet tells TSC. Now you wonder who Kupet is. The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers have now told the TSC, you guys are serious about education come 2024? We are asking you in our sector to hire 40,000 teachers. Not hire 40,000 teachers and then spread them across the country. For our sector, we need 40,000 teachers if we're going to be serious about this thing. So let's look at that. They're saying, you know what? Failure to make them permanent employees before their contracts end in January could foment a crisis. And the crisis is what you're staring down the barrel of, they say. More meat stories coming up in a bit. Kenya's shillings free fall, inflating foreign debt by 3 billion shillings daily. Are you understanding? every day, because of the free fall of the Kenya shilling, according to the frontal page of the Business Daily, you're having to pay an extra 3 billion shillings because of the loss in that forex
3 billion
exchange.
shillings daily.
Yes, please. Every single day, on top of that debt,
So it
3
means
billion.
this debt we will never actually.
We never finish paying it.
We'll never finish paying it.
No.
And that is what has triggered the supplementary budget with a view to revise the allocation, not on premium, but on interest.
Yeah, it's interest.
So at what point do we say enough is enough? Like, when will this end?
It won't.
Actually, the only way it will end is if we indicate in the strongest possible terms to those who keep making these silly decisions that we have had enough of this nonsense, because it's a ping pong game. You know, people talk about this matter of finance as though it's very complicated. It actually isn't. You see, you borrow, you pay. Whoever lends you the money has a premium. It's called interest that they charge you. You go and borrow in a foreign currency called a dollar. And when you exchange it to a shilling, it is X. Now, if that X keeps increasing, then it means what you're going to pay continues increasing.
Yeah, you have to spend more shilling to buy the dollar.
Yes.
Because you're not going to say, okay, this is what we've gathered. You have to actually buy the currency to repay the folks who lent it to you in that currency in the first place.
Yes.
They're expecting the one that they gave you to come back to them.
Yes.
And if it is free falling on this side and you have to actually collect more shilling in order to buy the dollar, what do you think is going to happen if the rates are changing on a daily basis?
Again, simple economics. Part of the reason how it is you acquire these foreign exchanges if you are a net exporter. Okay? Because then you're paid in foreign exchange.
Yeah.
Now, we show our foreign exchange reserves, if we have any, by remittances from Kenyans who live abroad.
The diaspora. Yeah.
That really is a big thing. But if you look at then the management of all these things and how it is being explained to us, it doesn't make sense, because the borrowing simply means that you are going to increase that debt that you're talking about again, because this borrowing is again in some foreign denomination.
Exactly.
Yes.
And at what point do we start having conversations around stabilizing the Kenya shilling against the dollar?
Yes, because we can.
Now.
We can have that conversation
Now.
We can. We can go beyond having the conversation. We can actually stabilize it.
And do something about it.
Yes.
Should you give us headlines? Then we take a break and look at traffic.
Headlines.
Mm.
Okay. Have we looked at Business Daily?
Yes,
We
that's
have.
why we're talking about this
And what
free
did we
fall
say
of the
about
Kenya.
Business Daily?
The free fall of the Kenya shilling, why we're paying 3 billion shillings every day.
Okay, let me look at East African.
Okay.
Have you said something?
She's going to say something. Do you have this one?
Which one? No, I don't. Thought I'd escape this. Why do you think I avoided it?
I know what you're doing. I see you
Okay.
from far.
In the right-hand corner in teal green, this is the star. There's a gentleman here whom we're quite familiar with. He's called Chebukati. He says, no regrets. That's the title. Technology can't cure impunity in Kenyan elections. He says, this is true. It's true, because technology has to be managed by human beings.
Yeah.
Okay? And technology doesn't have impunity. It just obeys instructions. So, simple. Then, KCS is storm. KC lawmakers claim unjust profiling. This is a profiling that has been there and it's as old as time.
Of kisses?
With exam cheating. I'm being specific because that's what this report is all about. Something happened in Nyamira. Every year there's something happening somewhere. Now, I agree with them that it is unfair because cheating takes place all over the country.
Yep.
Okay? But there's always a question of who has the lion's share. Now, I am not saying that it comes from a specific place, but there are people who take the lion's share when it comes to being reported as having been involved in cheating.
In cheating in exams.
Whether they actually do or not is a completely different matter, but it is spoken of as though they are. Okay? 9 more killed in floods as floods wreak havoc in counties. Did we not tell these guys? Tuliwa won.
Yeah, we
Before or after it became a fine to warn people about floods coming?
No, we were just contributing because long before all these things happened, we were talking about El Nino.
Yeah.
And then we brought experts to explain. We're saying, this El Nino is not what you people think. And the fact that it doesn't rain doesn't mean it won't rain.
And now here it is.
Yes. So even if we leave El Nino aside, we have rainy seasons. It's raining. The question was, are we prepared for the rains? Forget El Nino. And we were told, yes, we are prepared. The county informed us they were prepared. We even had the expert who's in charge of that docket said they're prepared. We will see. But from the cursory look we've given this matter, they were not prepared.
I don't think we are prepared because you can see from all over the country that various things are happening. You have people who have lost lives, people who have lost their property, livestock, which has actually been swept away by the rains. I think all of you saw the viral video where cows are actually being swept away by the floods.
Yeah.
I don't think we were prepared to manage this situation yet again. Yet for over a year now, we knew that this is something we had to expect.
Yes, we did. In fact, what we find alarming is that the president seemed to have been very prophetic about it when he said he wants to build dams. Now, we didn't need to build 100. 100 is a bit many to build at a go. But if there was sufficient attempt to ensure that we did put up certain structures that help allay some of the damage that is caused by very heavy rains, our story would have been different.
Yeah.
That we are witnessing what we're witnessing is proof that what was supposed to have been done was not done. That's really it.
It's incredible because it's almost as though the day, it's almost as though the day that the president actually said, who is God? And there's no El Nino, everybody put down any working tools that they had at that moment, any plans that they had put in place because hey, goodness.
Then,
because the president said that there's no more El Ninos. Everybody said, okay, it's over. Then we just continue our merry way.
Since we brought God
Really?
into the conversation, let me add my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
God didn't tell me this, but this is since we're all interpreting God, then God spoke and the heavens opened.
And clearly, when it rains, it pours because everything in the country has gone.
Man,
south.
has it
I'm
rained?
telling you, and it's not about to stop.
No, it's not.
On that note, let's take a break and look at what's going on with the roads this morning in terms of traffic, Abby, and then we'll come back and look at these stories in detail because I know there are some that are popping off right now, and then what exactly it does then mean as we go forward. It's 25 minutes to 7 o'clock, looking at the stories making headlines this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's betting, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, so actually not much happening on the roads this morning. I guess folks are still waiting to see, is it going to rain? Are we peeping out? Those who've left have probably already gotten where they're going today. Let's see what happens as we get into the morning. But right now, really, very little happening in terms of traffic. We're seeing just a smidgen of it as you're coming off a Fika Superhighway. And then also, as you're getting into the city, coming in from Langata Road, you should be fine. Gong Road also not giving, at least not at this point. It might just get a little bit sticky as you're coming off of the Eastern Bypass. Outer Ring, some traffic there as you're going out, touching on Manyanja, Kangunda Road, a little bit of it here and there. Juja Road also looks busy. And then this area coming out of Carrier Core is also looking just a bit busy as well. All right, let's talk in a bit, getting closer to 7, and then see what it looks like then. We'll talk on Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right.
94.4 Spice FM.
This morning.
I think the story that is popping out is on page 5 of the Standard, which speaks to Murkomen and Form's team to assess airports after outcry. A committee to submit an interim report within 14 days and the final report within 28 days. Minister inspects JKA after social media rage over the leaking roofs. I would imagine that this would go without saying that after the airport has been deemed not fit for service, particularly since it's leaking, that the people in the management of said airport would then find out what has happened. Like, should we form committees on every single thing? Because when I hear the word committee, I hear per diem, sitting allowances, trips and retreats to various parts of the country to retreat and write the report. But it's part and parcel of the work. So why do we ensure that every single thing forms a committee or a task force?
Fix the roof and then make sure that you maintain a position of it being fixed. That's it. I don't understand why. What report? The roof was leaking. Do you need 14 days or 28 days to then find out why it was leaking? No, you need a guy who's in the roof to say, okay, there's a leak here and this is what caused it. Can we fix it? And then what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? End of story. What are we doing?
No.
Sir?
There's a setup called Kenya Airports Authority. They have a huge office. When you enter the airport, you see it.
Yes.
That's their job.
That's why they're there every day. Every day.
Their job. Don't need the committee. But anyway, I am delighted that the minister has done this. He keeps giving us insights into how he thinks and how he looks at life. And we will question how it is he looks at life and how useful that look of his is when it comes to getting things done. Why has the Kenya Airports Authority not been taken to task?
I don't understand.
There is a department that deals with maintenance and such things. What on earth have they been doing? I know these are people who are paid with taxpayers' money to do this very same thing. The airport earns money every single day. That authority manages that money. That money is intended, yes, to go towards government, blah, 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 but it's also intended to ensure that that airport is as swanky and in the state that it ought to be. That's an international airport. One of the biggest hub, if not, in this particular continent.
So these people, because I've seen it, I think I've even seen it, their maintenance issue areas within the airport. So the people who deal with maintenance, what then do they do?
They exist, by the way. Huh?
Yes, they do. What then do they do? What do they do? Because what, and then why does it have to be that it is? Because this is not a drip drop situation that we saw at the airport. It was raining inside the airport.
Yes.
That did not start on one day. No, it's been there.
The airport has been leaking for some time.
And nobody did anything about it. And then suddenly there's a task force and there's a committee who are 14 days and then 28 days and then there will be a report. And then?
Well, no, it didn't stop there. The minister even went to the airport and was staring at the roof. That usually is a sign that something is going to be done. Okay, so please take heart. Do not feel that nothing is being done. The minister went there in person.
I think for me, it's the general state of what's happening in our airports that is a bit concerning. Like now we have the roof leaking. The other day we were discussing KRA and its customs issues. I feel like right now JKA is becoming just a place where it gets featured in bad highlights. There's no good thing coming out of JKIA. We need good news coming out of our international airport. Power outages. How can you have a power outage at an international airport? Wasn't the last KAA executive director sacked because of the issue of power in the last blackout? So why is it recurring again? Shouldn't it have been fixed? So I feel like the management of airports really needs to be called into question because it paints the country in bad light. You cannot have tourists coming in for the first time in our country and they find a leaking roof and a dark space.
Actually, it's not finding a leaking roof. You're being rained on and you're inside. You're inside the terminal.
For real. Look, I think that this is it. We wrap a lot of things in bureaucracy that absolutely it is unnecessary. That here you are, okay, so like you said, so a task force will sit now today, they're running around this morning. Let's sit, create a boardroom. We must serve tea at 10:30 kind of thing. So let's find out what happened. Come on. It's a leaking roof. Fix the thing and then make sure that the folks who are supposed to be responsible for maintenance are doing their job. If they're not, get rid of them and get somebody else to do it. Yeah. This for me is very cut and dry. I don't know why we want to.
What is it about this Kenyan space where everything requires a committee in order to be solved? And yet you have people who are employed to do precisely the thing you're asking the committee to do.
Yeah.
And they're paid.
Maybe because if you say task force and committee, it gives an air like no, it doesn't actually work.
Anything. It just tells us that someone doesn't seem to know what they're doing. That is what it gives the impression. What are you setting a task force for?
Do you need specific terms of reference to guide you on how to do your work?
I mean, surely. I thought that's why you got the job in the first place.
Yeah. But I wonder, it's very interesting to me that this terminal where it was raining this way, people pass through here, that area, every single day. There are clients who are leaving, there are clients who are coming, there are staff who are working. One of the luggage weighing whatever was drenched in water. So my question is, the people who saw it every day, what is the thinking? What's the thinking? Our problem is actually sometimes, you will be saying, man, it's not a money issue.
No.
It's bad manners. It's bad behavior. We just don't want to do the right thing.
Do think about it for a single second. Yeah? Who should have spoken on this matter of the leaking roof? Is it the minister or is it the MD of Kenya Airports Authority?
It's not the minister, if you ask me.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's way above.
Yeah.
It is not the minister's purview to talk about airports. That's actually not his job. Not really. His docket includes airports, the port, the railway, all these things. And all these institutions have some people who head them. It is them who should be speaking on these matters and explaining to us.
Coming back to what Ndu was saying, I think the problem that sometimes ails Kenyans is the philosophy of not my monkey, not my business. Like when you see something happening and it's not part of your job, because I'm assuming that the ticketing persons who are sitting there and they can tell that the roof is leaking are like, that is not our job. Our job is to ensure you get on the plane and your luggage is checked in. And they report it maybe, but they don't follow up because it's not part of their mandate. So how do we get to a point where it's a collective effort that every single person working in an institution can say, there is a problem here, and if you don't take it up and I've reported to my superior, I'll go all the way to the MD's office and raise it, because at the end of the day, when this thing starts raining the way it has rained, I have a feeling all those equipment that are down there have been ruined.
Been damaged.
Yes, no.
So the belt has been ruined.
They've been damaged.
They won't work.
And,
how much more have we
And
done?
along that strip, there are also computers. There are all these gadgets that they use, but ask yourself the simple question. What is it that gets people to the state where they no longer give a hoot?
Like, you know what you'll do? You'll come, oh, it's raining this morning. This is where I'm supposed to sit. Okay, we'll just leave this one. I will move to the next one where there's no rain. As in, you become so lackadaisical.
How do people get to that? You see, if you look at the process in our country, it isn't as though these things are not discussed at management. It is discussed. It isn't as though money is not allocated. Money is allocated.
Yeah.
That's where now the saga begins. Because the money is allocated and you'll be told it's been spent. And you'll even find a few people tinkering with nails and hammers at some point. And then it rains. And you wonder, what on earth are those people doing there? Did they not fix this thing?
Yeah.
Why are we taking this thing far? Same minister is in charge of roads, is he not?
Yes.
Okay. This road in front of our building here, okay? They said it will take 2 weeks to fix.
No, they said it will take 1 week.
Precisely.
Specifically, I remember because I saw the notice from 4th, it will be done on the 11th.
Precisely. 2 weeks later, where are we? That hole is now full of water. And the likelihood of this thing being finished before the end of December is slim. So it means the commute and everything around there has completely been disrupted. And you wonder why they have to do this thing now, when we know the rainy season is around the corner, number one. Two, deceleration, acceleration lane should have been put up when they were putting the expressway and all the thingamajigs that went with it. This is something that I would have assumed is common sense.
You would assume.
But also
I have to assume.
our country is plagued with afterthoughts.
Yes.
Like the oops mentality, like, oh, we ought to have fixed that. We ought to have done that. Now let's do it. The question about timing, resources, doesn't come into play. We're going to do it now. Public participation on whether we need to do it now. Consultation with relevant departments, including Met. Did it happen? No one knows. But yeah, now you have a gaping hole in front of your offices.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so now, security guards, okay? 30,000 shillings is what you're being told. If you're going to hire, the salary increment in part of the wider reforms in the sector is to cater for guards' welfare. Private security guards now have a reason to smile after the government set their minimum gross pay at 30,000 shillings a month. This thing that used to do where you say, I'm hiring a firm, I can pay somebody 6,000 shillings to guard an entire estate or to guard a compound or to guard a building. Sorry, it's not going to happen anymore. It comes as a major boost to at least 1 million guards employed by 2,000 security firms. In a Gazette notice published by the Private Security Regulatory Authority, any employer who will fail to adhere to this directive will be fined 2 million shillings, be imprisoned, or be subjected to both. The new salary includes a basic pay of 18,000 shillings, home allowance of 2,850 and an overtime allowance of 8,157. The minimum statutory deductions to include the NSSF, which is the National Social Security Fund, at 1,080, and the Social Health Insurance Fund of 825. Pay as you earn will come to 1,229, and the affordable housing levy, of course, is 450 shillings. This is the minimum amount landing in the private security guard's bank account every month, and that should be 26,450. So after all the deductions are made from 30,000 shillings, private security guards should take home this amount. They've also issued minimum qualifications for private security guards. They should hold a valid training certificate from an accredited institution and be licensed in line with the Private Security Regulation Act. It's a good thing, you said, CT.
It is. You see, if you look at the wages people are paid and you compare it with the responsibility, not the task, the responsibility that is placed on their shoulders, you will find that the cadre of individuals who perhaps are most disadvantaged have been these guards. They are paid poorly, they're never paid on time, and yet they are expected to actually provide security. If you look at the manner in which they've been treated and what they've been paid, essentially what you've been doing is fomenting insecurity. You're paying someone 10,000, 7,000 shillings a month. They're supposed to come to work every morning.
Yes, or night.
Yes, you delay paying them. Yet they have the same needs as you.
And who are the people when something should go bust? Who are the people who get arrested first?
It is them.
It's them, isn't it?
It is them.
Yeah.
It is them.
Yeah.
If you look at most people who are security guards, you'll find them looking very slim and trim and fit. It's not as though they go around running every morning and exercise and go to the gym. They do not live well. Their lives are fairly miserable. And that's a job someone takes when they don't have very many options.
Yeah. I think for me, I just look at it as this is dignifying people, because a take home of 7,000 in this current economy is not a dignified life. And for the kind of tasks that they have, the kind of hours they work, the kind of circumstances some of them work in, I mean, some of them actually guard premises that do not have even a shelter for them to shield themselves. So you really put people under a lot of strain and you don't compensate them nearly enough. 30,000 is a good step, and I'm really hoping that this is just the beginning, because they have noted that there is career progression whereby some of them will be able to grow into the career, getting promotions and whatnot. But this is actually a step in the right direction, because you do give a lot of mandate and power to security guards. They do guard some of the banks, actually, some banks, some schools. I think we entrust security guards with some of our most personal and dear issues, our homes, our children. So how can we allow them to have a take home of 7,000?
This is true.
Yeah.
The other side is that it's come to with this, then brings the reality that the premium that is charged to clients by these security firms will inadvertently rise, because they say that they pay their guards if you've got 150 or 200 guards on staff, and you used to pay them 10,000 shillings, for example, and now that you're asking for, it's now a requirement that you pay a minimum of 30, that your 100 guards, your wage bill now increases by 2 million shillings per month. All right.
There is that.
That is going to be transferred to your client.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That is fine.
Because if you were charging a group, for example, a certain amount per month, and now you need to take on this burden, as it were, it is the end user now who will have to add on to their premiums.
But consider, why do you seek to disadvantage someone by preferring an argument that the cost will rise? Of course it will rise. Why is it that you find people with hefty pay slips which indicate they were, and it's supposed to be in recognition of their contribution and the significance of that contribution? So if we're saying that this is insignificant, it's the same thinking that goes into the employment of house help. People pay house help slave salaries. I mean, you wonder what that money is supposed to be for. And yet you look at the responsibility that a house help has. This is a person that looks after your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That without them in that position,
Yes.
you would not be able to leave.
You would have to do
stay
exactly
there.
what they are doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Now, if you were doing it, what price would you pay
Exactly.
yourself? I mean, there's an entire thinking that justifies certain things that have been wrong for the very, very longest time. But it's something that comes to mind as I was looking at this screen. Are we looking at another fuel shortage in the country? I mean, I'm asking the question.
How?
You see,
Thought we have too much fuel.
We even have fuel being brought in, sent back. People who don't know 17 billion.
There's a reason why I asked that specific question. You see, if there is enough fuel to meet our needs and the cost keeps going up, who do you think is going to offtake that fuel? Who is going to buy it? People are already adjusting the way they go about consuming fuel.
Already we have a dip in,
Yes, and the dip
fuel purchase.
Can you imagine what happens when people wrap their heads around this? Because we all live in communities. You make things what we do. Now, what if communities wrap their heads around this and say, folks, perhaps what we've been doing is not the best way of going about this. Let's rearrange it. What do you think is going to happen to the oil industry? Because the buying of fuel and the selling of it is based on certain numbers.
You have to have a certain threshold met in order for the supply to be kept at this particular point.
The sense it does. Okay, now, if that thinking and interference has run on that thinking with people rearranging and reorganizing themselves, what do you think is going to happen?
There's going to be a reduction in supply.
There's going to be a reduction in consumption. There's going to be a reduction on taxes. There's going to be a reduction on revenue collected. The ripple effect is profound.
It's already here now. Is that not what the Business Daily is saying this morning? Drop in fuel and, interestingly enough, beer usage to deny the state 133 billion shillings because people are not buying it.
The flip side would be, because now you're catering to a smaller number, you'd have to increase to ensure that the smaller number can actually offset the amount that you used to get.
Is this not the same thinking that this government has had with regards to taxes, isn't it? And we're already seeing how that is working out, aren't we?
Yes.
Now, fuel is something you can't control how I consume fuel. I decide. Now, if I decide to walk, what are you going to do?
You can't do anything.
You can't. And actually, a lot of people are turning to that. I was in a space where some people said that the only time they're using their vehicles is to go to work, and it's because they have to use their vehicles to go to work. On the weekends, they are sitting at home and enjoying the comfort of their sofa sets because going out into the streets has now become expensive.
And carpooling has made a comeback. And that's another thing.
Made a comeback,
yeah. That's what we're looking
Believe
at.
me, cycle riding is also going to come in.
It will.
You know, this sort of situation often brings about a complete rethink of how people live. And unfortunately, a rethink that is fueled by rising costs will mean the revenue that is associated with this cost is going to dip, and it's going to dip significantly.
It is. Okay, let's look at this education story. It's important. Kupet wants the state to review contracts for 40,000 interns. They are interns. Kupet is saying, can you please make them teachers? Let's give them contracts so that they're actual functioning teachers and that we can actually make use of them. If not, come January, we will have a crisis because we just don't have enough. The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, wants the government to address several issues affecting junior schools before the second class transitions in January to avert a crisis. Now, remember what happened is that we had the first cohort coming into CBC Junior School as grade 7. Now, grade 7s will go to grade 8 in January, and the current grade 6s who sat the KEPSEA in November this month, or rather end of October, will now go to grade 7. Now, what Kupet is saying, we do not have enough teachers who are trained to teach at this level. You have 40,000 interns who do not have the proper who may have the proper certification, but you've not given them contracts. So they cannot teach at that level, according to you, the TSC, who has set this standard in the first place. So they're saying there are 40,000 intern teachers, and the implementation of the CBC, those are some of the things that need to be addressed. They addressed journalists at the sidelines of the KUPPET National Executive Board meeting at a Nairobi hotel yesterday. Secretary General Akelo Misori demanded the immediate conversion to permanent and pensionable terms for the interns who were teaching in junior schools. All right. The teachers were contracted to serve a year during recruitment drives in January, July, and September. And he said failure to convert them to permanent and pensionable terms before their contracts expire in January could destabilize the implementation of CBC when the pioneer class progresses to grade 8. Remember, these are the ones who started as grade 4 when CBC was implemented in 2019. He went on to state that it's not just about fulfilling contracts, it's also about safeguarding the educational system from disruptions. These intern teachers play a crucial role in the CBC transition, and stabilizing their status could have severe repercussions, or rather not stabilizing their status could have severe repercussions on the next phase of grade 8. So I wonder, what would it take for TSC to make sure that these interns are actually in a status where they can be comfortable teaching? It's hard, small, Abby.
Yes, that it most certainly is.
Why can't it just be sorted out? I don't understand. You have them there for a year. They've already proven to you that they have the wherewithal to then be able to teach at this level. Make them teachers.
If you sort it out, there will be no problem for you to whine about.
Hey,
What is the challenge, actually? Because I'm not understanding why they're not being made into permanent. Is there a budget issue? Has TSC said there's a budget issue that they cannot afford to absorb all the 40,000?
Last week, Nancy Macharia told us that they did not have money, but then now they've been given money. But now she actually said very clearly that money has been provided for the employment of teachers. So if you ask me, rather than look for a new batch from outside, you have these 40,000 here who are waiting to get onto the next level. Please give them.
And they've been tested already. They've been doing
They've taught for a year.
Yeah, but a new conversation that is politically motivated will come in. It's called employment.
Okay. It's the top of the hour. It's 7 o'clock. Things that need to be sorted out need sorting out.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the news wire. I'm Leah Obaga. Muslims for Human Rights have accused the Kenya Kwanza government of promoting impunity, saying state corporations ignored court orders over the 17 billion oil saga. And Njeri Njoroge, who is at the center of the saga, had on November 8th obtained orders from the Mombasa High Court. This event comes as Energy CS Davis Chirchir is now alleging that Njeri presented forged documents with which she wanted to lay claim to 93,000 metric tons of diesel from Saudi Arabia. The CS dismissed claims by the businesswoman that she's the bona fide importer of the cargo, saying her application for an oil importation license was rejected by EPRA after she failed to meet the minimum threshold to secure the import license. Chirchir said the true position is that the oil consignment was imported by Galana. The Ministry of Transport has formed an 11-member committee to investigate the state of Kenya Airports Authority run airports after the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport saga. Transport CS Kipchumba Murkomen says the committee will assess the state of infrastructure and electromechanical facilities.
The report of this technical committee, will inform further works that we are going to commission. We no longer want to do patching here, patching there. We want to do something comprehensive. And my office, once receives this report, will now sit down and guide the agency through the office of the PS and the board of the agency to carry out a comprehensive renovations in this particular facility.
The process of writing the final report by the National Dialogue Committee has hit a snag after both parties failed to reach an agreement on the issue of the rising cost of living. Co-chairs Kimani Ichung'wah and Kalonzo Musyoka say that they are still deliberating on matters of increased taxes and the housing levy.
We have had very extensive discussions and deliberations on the issues touching on the cost of living and agreed on a number of things, but we have also found need to make further consultations, and that's why we asked for a timeout to make further consultations.
So the cost of living matter, we said we decided to confront it head on. Okay, that's why we have asked for further consultations.
This event comes as ODM leader Raila Odinga has maintained that they'll not put a signature to the report if it fails to address the cost of living and audit the 2022 presidential elections.
Sasa tunasema ile timu yetu ambayo wako pale mpaka watoke na matokeo vile Paranya amesema, ambayo inaonyesha vile tutarekebisha mambo ya IEBC. Pili, waongee juu ya mambo ya gharama ya maisha. Tatu, mambo ya sava ifanyiwe nini ukaguzi.
Over 15 Meru residents have filed a petition at the County Assembly seeking to impeach executive committee members of Governor Kawira Mwangaza's cabinet for allegedly violating the constitution and statutory laws. In the petition filed, the petitioners have cited a myriad of grounds upon which they want the county secretary and secretary to the cabinet, 6 county executive committee members, 3 chief officers, and the chief of staff sent packing. Among the facts relied upon is the defense Governor Mwangaza put up in the Senate during the failed impeachment attempt against her. And finally, health workers have raised an alert over a sharp rise in diabetes cases among pregnant women, which poses a major threat to their unborn babies and mothers. Christian Health Association of Kenya Chair Cyprian Kamau says the cases are rampant among new and young mothers, especially in urban areas. At least 7% of Kenyans are either diabetic or vulnerable to the condition as the number of patients continues to rise. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga.
All right, at a few minutes after 7 o'clock, traffic starting to build up in different parts of the city this morning. I think that it's going to get just a tad busier as we get onto the thicker superhighway. This morning, as you're approaching the Pangani underpass, there's quite some traffic there at that nook as you try to get into the CBD. And it's also starting to build up on Kiambu Road this morning. Are you coming out of Westlands on James Gishuru? I think you'll be fine for now. We will see that build up later. That one is for sure. Crossing over to Wayaki Way. All right, as you're coming off Magadi Road, you'll be fine as you get to that junction. You're going in the Karen direction, or then you're going towards Langata Road, and that will continue to move steadily for now. Outer Ring is busy. It's going to touch on those junctions. Manyanja going towards Jogo Road, and then at Kangunda Road heading out into the city until you get to that GSU junction of the thicker superhighway. It continues this morning and we're getting into it proper. We'll keep an eye on things and see what happens as we get closer to traffic hour. Spice FM KE on X. Let's talk there and keep things moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist,
Good morning and welcome.
a man
7
who
minutes
believes
after
in
7
punching
o'clock.
up.
We're getting into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. It is Justice Thursday, and as we look at issues on accessing justice, we'll get into that conversation today. But step up and shine with Kiwi. You must remember, yes, we know the heavens are gloomy every now and then with the rain, but there's an opportunity with Kiwi to keep your shoes shined. Step shine, but here's a great opportunity as we come to the end of the year, stepping in 2024. School fees will be back, isn't it? But what are we saying? Walk into any supermarket today, look for the kiwi with the new logo. Purchase that kiwi with the new logo. And then under the lid, once you pop it, you will find a code. You'll then come back to the starburst on the tin, and you will dial *459 *5#, input that code, and you instantly win airtime and or data. You also then get enrolled in the draw, which allows you to win 35,000 shillings for school fees in January. It's like winning a pot of gold, isn't it, at that time? So 4 winners every week winning 35,000 shillings. It goes towards school fees. Kiwi, in an attempt to remind you to step up and shine. And you can do that very easily. Let's do it because it'll be great. This morning, in our Justice Thursday conversation, we will be looking at the enhancing access to justice in addressing GBV. But more importantly, we're looking critically at the role of women judges, magistrates in championing jurisprudence on gender-based violence. And joining us in the studio this morning, Honorable Lady Justice Helen Omondi is the judge of the Appeal Court and the president of the International Association of Women Judges. Good morning, and karibu sana. Also joining us this morning is Honorable Renee Kitagwa, who is the Principal Magistrate at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport Law Courts, at the JKIA Law Courts. Good morning, Justice.
Good morning too.
Karibu sana. Thank you both for joining us today on the Justice Thursday conversation. It started a while ago when we look at issues pertaining to justice, and we're looking at accessing justice and really understanding and breaking down some of these things for us to then be able to understand them at that level. Interestingly enough, our guest host for this morning swims in the same waters, and she's a member of the ICJ, and Julie Matheka is our guest host for today. And as we look into those matters and jump into it, CT has a proverb that he shares with us every week. It comes from a different country, and we are in a democratic country this week with our proverbs, and he'll let us know who that is.
Yes. Last week we were in the Republic of Congo, not to be confused with the DRC. This week we're looking at proverbs from DRC, which is actually next door. If there had been no Berlin Conference and this redrawing of boundaries had existed, it was just simply one country. Well, I guess you could say it was just one continent, but then here we are. The proverb for the day, today is Thursday. You inherit from the dead, not the sick. Judge, that proverb is from DRC. I didn't invent it. You're looking at me as though it's like, why are you telling us these things? No, I am merely reading.
But that is true,
Isn't it? Tell us what
even legally speaking, you can only inherit from somebody who is dead. That's why we do succession.
Indeed.
Yeah, but for somebody who is sick, he's still alive. There's nothing that can pass. No property can pass from a sick person unless he bequeaths. He gives you like as a gift. Yes.
Interesting. Looking at it from a legal point of view, Justice Omondi, what does that mean to you?
Well, I looked at CT a bit puzzled as to why he would think of.
He can be a puzzling fella sometimes.
Yes, he really can be. But yes, indeed, you can only inherit from the dead. The one who is sick may only be sick, again, depending on the nature of illness, but they are still alive and have rights over what they own, and can still speak and say yes and no. The dead, well, the dead don't speak, so one can be able to stake a claim and hope to fight over it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indeed. Okay. Well, I think that will actually play out a little bit as we have this conversation this morning, and looking at some of the things that we're talking about as we kick off into it. The role of women judges, it almost, just from that first part alone, it almost were to say that could be different from other judges when it comes to looking at matters of gender-based violence in the country. Is that the case? And where are we starting off? We'll start off with you, Honorable Omondi. Is that what we're seeing? That the role of women judges could be specifically different when it comes to adjudication in gender-based violence issues, matters?
Thank you very much. The role of women judges is not totally different, but we have the tendency to look at matters with a gender lens, specifically because of what women and girls go through, and children. Our training as judicial officers, as lawyers, is one. Yet the lived reality, which we cannot run away from, is that the society has a tendency of looking at individuals from a gender lens, so that I am defined by my sex, female or male. And a lot of things that would happen would be attributed to the fact that I'm either male or female. And that then leads to a lot of abuses. And because of the vulnerability of the female gender, there is the tendency to sort of sweep under the carpet what would otherwise be seen as being unfair and unjust. So yes, to that extent, we tend to have that lens because of the experiences that we go through and acknowledge.
Honorable Kisako, does it then affect how adjudication would then be played out? Because the almost initial reaction would be, well, this person who sits in a position as a judicial officer would lean in a particular way because of the fact that their gender naturally disposes them to feel a certain way. Would it then affect the way judgment happens?
Thank you for that question. I don't think that I would say you lean. You know, the nature of our training is that you need to balance. You need to understand that when you're sitting there as a judicial officer, you have to balance the rights of both parties. However, as a woman, you appreciate the role of a woman in the society, the challenges that women go through. So it's easier for you to relate with the issues and provide a conducive environment for a victim of gender violence in the circumstance. So that provides you with the ability to appreciate and understand this person better because of the gender role. You know, we've grown up in a stereotype society where women have been handled in a certain way. And being an African child, we understand, we know. When Andrew speaks and says, this is what I've gone through, it's easier for me to relate. So I will look at it with that lens, provide that warmth, provide that environment that will allow the victim, because in most cases, these are victims of gender-based violence. Thank you.
You know, when you talk about gender-based violence, I sometimes wonder, the focus seems to be on the action that is described as violence, the verb. But what about the thinking that actually leads to it? What is it that makes people behave and conduct themselves in a certain way? What is this inclination? Because for it to be a subject that is constantly discussed, it's an issue that is out in the open, and it's something that is worrying. It's a trend that in many, many ways, it has a growth trajectory. What is it that brings us to this position where it is as worrisome as it is?
Thank you for that question. The issue of gender-based violence, it's a worrisome issue. And to answer that question, allow me to give my experience, because I've served in Kibera law courts for quite a number of years, about 7 years, and appreciating that environment. We've encountered various forms of gender-based violence. And in terms of what causes that, sometimes you may not really understand, but because things happen, and when people appear before you, somebody will say, okay, I was going out to line up my clothes, and I took some time outside. And when mostly is the husband or the boyfriend for some reason, calls the wife back, and he asked the wife, "How come you've taken so long outside? Were you talking to some other man, or what were you doing?" And issues escalate. So the causes are quite varied. So I cannot really say this is what causes gender violence, but it happens every single day. Every single day.
Allow me to go back to the earlier point that was being discussed around women understanding women's issues slightly better. Last year's data from CRU indicated that 711 men were actually victims of gender-based violence as well, sexual and gender-based violence. And I note that in the SGBV strategy that was launched by the Honorable the Chief Justice, Trauma Responsive Justice, that there was a concern that was raised in one of the conversations and consultations that if we have more women addressing GBV, then the men who are actually victims and survivors of GBV may not feel comfortable coming to the courts. Maybe shed light on that.
Thank you very much. We recognize that when you talk about SGBV and GBV, the majority of the survivors or the victims may be women, but it is a fact that men and boys also go through that kind of violence. Acknowledging that, the female judicial officers within the International Association of Women Judges, the Kenyan chapter, recognize that we need to rope in the men so that our membership actually has women and men, the he for she, brother for sister approach. And we have 16 male champions. 6 are judges and 10 are magistrates and Kadi. So yes, we acknowledge that it is not only something that affects women only. Perhaps the socialization is such that men tend to keep it under wraps, be man and not, don't talk about it. Women tend to voice it out. Actually, our mantra is justice and equality for all. So we acknowledge that, and we would want to see a society where it is violence-free, irrespective of which gender.
Right.
Yes.
Maybe just to add on to that, I think you've seen jurisprudence coming from court, and it's women who are also making these decisions in favor of men. If you've been following social media, let me deviate from the issue of gender-based violence, and let me just talk about maybe issues to do with children in custody, because that's what we also fight for. You will notice that it is the female judicial officers who are also giving custody to the male parents in this situation. And you see some of these issues, even where men feel deprived in one way or the other, they are as a result of issues to do with custody of children. We'll realize a lot of fights, a lot of issues arise from that. But it's the same women in IAWJA who say, no, in this particular situation, the man is right. So it does not mean that we have abandoned the men and focused purely on the female. It just means that we are trying to advocate for the rights of the women and the child, because in most situations, they are more vulnerable
to this. Okay, what have we seen in terms of a trajectory, again, on the adjudication of some of these cases and the roles that women judges, magistrates have played in this over time? And I know that in the former administration of Kenya, that we had seen the years 2024, next year, and 2026 marked as years whereby gender-based violence should essentially come to an end. From a judicial point of view, are we actually seeing that? And when we talk about adjudication, are we looking at reform of the individuals who made these other individuals victims? Or are we just seeing that a case is brought before court, this person is either jailed or reprimanded, but then the risk of them being repeat offenders is still very much alive?
Thank you. There are two ways of looking at it. One, legislation may never completely change behavior. And in recognizing that, our association, the International Association of Women Judges, has pushed for several things. One, we recognize that those that have cases in court relating to SGBV, the cases tend to take very long. And when the cases take long, then there's a likelihood of interference with the witness. There's a likelihood of the witness forgetting. And of course, there's always the question of being re-traumatized. And the longer it takes, the worse it is. Our association has actually pushed for survivor-friendly courts. And proudly so that the Chief Justice did launch the first SGBV court in the country in Shanzu, which coincidentally coincided with her push for social transformation through access to justice. And our idea is that these cases should be determined in the fastest way possible and in an environment that leaves the victim with their dignity intact. Because normally the survivor or victim, as you may say, is made to feel ashamed and made to feel to be the one to carry the blame. And as a result of our push, we've actually, the Chief Justice has set up 10 other courts. But to talk about the escalation of violence, and especially gender-based violence, I'm sure you noticed that during the Corona period, it spiked.
Yes.
Many reasons. City asked, what are the reasons why that causes gender-based violence? It is as varied as life is. Part of it is just our socialization. Women are objects, children are objects that you can let out or vent out on. But there are also the economic factors that one feels constrained by certain limitations to let out their frustration. And which object is easier than the vulnerable one? And it is with this in mind that I'm sure you're aware of the 16 days of activism, which we are keenly involved in, because we realize legislation alone cannot change. So we need to reach out. We need to create awareness, and we need to let the people in the country know. So we are roping in this international 16 days that is observed globally to also get to the root people within our communities. And because our association is in all the regions in the country, every region for the next 16 days from 25th of November to 10th of December will be having an activity that will be able to sensitize the people and be able to see whether, because I think leadership is not only about taking the mantle and leading, but it's also inspiring change and allowing people to help in bringing that change. So yes, there has been an escalation, but yes, also there has been great effort by not only our association, but several of our partners and stakeholders to try and reach every person and make them aware of the challenges.
In addition to what Judge has said, I sit in the, do I say the lowest courts? So we interact with these people every single day, the victim and the perpetrator. And getting back to your question about whether we give them also an opportunity to reform, I think that's what you also asked. In most instances, cases of gender violence are between a husband, wife, boyfriend, those kind of relationships in a family setup. And if you look at the Constitution, the family is a basic unit. And one of our responsibility is also to ensure that basic unit remains intact. You know, it's a home. In handling these cases, when victims come before you, sometimes depending on the circumstances, because again, circumstances are as varied as life, the way Judge has put it. So in some situations, you will find even the victim wants to go back to the perpetrator. So you allow the two individuals to speak, because the Constitution also allows us to allow the parties to engage in ADR. If it is a situation where the only thing you can do is to warn, and it has worked. It's something I've seen. Yeah, you sit and, you know, it takes time, it takes patience for you as a judicial officer. You sit with these people. Maybe it's a couple. They have stayed together for 15 years, 20 years. And you see, immediately after maybe assaulting or causing any form, any of the various forms of gender violence, some of the perpetrators are actually sorry. They actually apologize, even in court. Personally, I've seen gifts being given in court and they come back together. While serving in Naivasha, I sat with a couple and, you know, initially the situation was bad because I will not mention names, but I can just give the circumstance of the case where the man of the house assaulted the wife, even took an iron box, hot one, and smashed it on her hand, and she sustained burns. 1 year down the line, the case was in court. Yeah, I was presiding over it, but the gentleman came and he said he does not know what got over him. That's why we say, you know, sometimes you don't even know what causes that. And through various meetings, various sessions, I refer them to go for counseling so that they can decide, because it's not something that you can also push as a judicial officer. It should come from the parties. They sat down, and despite the gender violence that was experienced in that home, they were back together. 1 year down the line, I found them at Naivas supermarket holding hands. So it does not mean that in every other situation we punish. In certain situations, we allow for the parties involved to sit down and mediate and talk. But there are situations where the situation is so bad that you can no longer even allow the victim back to that particular environment. In such a situation, there's nothing much you can do. You apply the legislation available. Unfortunately, the law is there. It provides for punishment. We apply the law as it is.
As it is.
And maybe just to add on to that, I think recognizing that we need to reach out even to the perpetrator. It is better to get to the problem before it comes up. And what our association is doing is that we have organized various activities targeting groups that we think would have the highest impact. If you visit our prisons, you'll find an age set of between 18 to 30 charged with sexual offenses, which carry very heavy sentences. And so some of the activities that we will be carrying out in the next 16 days actually are targeting communities that we think would be able to have the highest impact, whether it is in the Nyanza region, in the Mount Kenya region, in Rift Valley region. Visiting prisons, yes, to talk to those that are already facing that challenge, but also engaging with communities like the beach management units. They can organize themselves and have one of us sensitize them on sexually and gender-based violence. But even for the women, there is the tendency to keep quiet and feel ashamed about it. So it is also to reach out to them and let them know it is okay to know that you are not going through this alone, and please don't keep quiet. there is help, there is a way that this can be changed. And as she says, it is not all, because sometimes the fear is, but if I go and report this is my husband,
Yes,
he will be put in.
There will be shame.
Yeah.
Of course. Let's take a break on that note. The Honorable Renee Kitagwa, as well as Honorable Lady Justice Helen Omondi, are our guests this morning, and we're looking at the role of women judges, magistrates in championing jurisprudence on gender-based violence this morning. It's 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. Right back after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you dump.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
$16 degrees and cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 23, and we'll see highs of 22 in a partly sunny Nakuru at 15. It's 16 and mostly cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 22, and we'll definitely see rain later. Looking into a partly sunny Eldoret at 14, highs of 24, and into Mombasa this morning at 24, heavy rain through the night and into the morning, highs of 29. And we'll see rain at some point in a partly cloudy Malindi, currently at 25. In Kisumu this morning, mostly sunny conditions. We'll go into cloudy conditions later, highs of 28 and lows of 20. And Kakamega is sunny at 17, going to highs of 27. Kampala this morning is partly sunny at 21 with highs of 27. We'll see lows of 19. And it's partly sunny at 24 in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 31. Mogadishu this morning is partly sunny at 28 and it's partly sunny at 13 in Addis Ababa. Sunny at 13 in Johannesburg, going to highs of 27. And Lagos is cloudy at 25, going to highs of 31. Kinshasa is clear at 23. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 23.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive.
All right, so traffic continues. It's actually not too sticky this morning, just a little bit of it building on the Thika Superhighway and then coming in through to the city. You'll use your service lanes until you get towards the Pangani underpass, or rather past Survey, and then you can't use them anymore. Limuru Road is also starting to build up now and coming off the northern bypass. You're coming into Ruaka, we'll see some movement there. James Gishuru is also pretty busy. Still looking at what's going on as you come off of Jogo Road, and that's busy as you get towards Landis, and then at the Kamkunji roundabout, it's busy on Langata Road, quite busy actually, and some of that traffic will spill over towards Raila Odinga Way, and Uhuru Highway is giving through towards the CBD. We're getting into traffic hour proper right about now. Let's see what happens right after this. Spice FM, KE on X. Let's talk there and keep things moving this Thursday.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's a Justice Thursday conversation this morning, and we're looking at the role of women judges and magistrates in jurisprudence on gender-based violence.
I have to ask, by the time you get to be a chief magistrate, time you get to be a judge, apart from just the experience, you have, well, you initially went to school, went to law school, but chances are you've studied a bit more. You even have a judiciary academy. Are there units in the course of your studies where you study counseling, psychological welfare? There's a reason why I ask. If you're constantly in touch with the issues we're dealing with, you will need help at some point. You cannot deal with these matters and you are left unscathed. You will be affected. 1, 2, because of the power of the positions that you hold and the authority therein, would this not be a pivotal point where if one had such training, I'm assuming that it isn't there, and if it's there, it's inadequate, so that you can actually handle these things from a 360 perspective of understanding human nature and how it plays out in some of these circumstances? Just asking.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I will reiterate that being the lowest cadre, we deal with these issues on a daily basis, Monday to Friday, meeting victims, various forms, be it defilement, be it rape, be it assault, all those kind of violence meted on people and on both genders. Looking back at the various units we did, I do not think at any given time I went through any course on counseling. It has been largely a personal initiative, but currently we are so grateful to the Chief Justice that she has appreciated. And sometimes that's why we say, women, sometimes they see far. And
not sometimes women see far. Just
I'm trying to be sensitive. I'm trying to be sensitive.
I'm also being very sensitive. They see far as a matter of fact. They actually do.
Yes. And if you look at the stage, one of the key focal points is mental awareness. We're actually coming up now with trainings, not in terms of the one-on-one ones, but they're actually, what is happening now, counselors are being brought in place during our various trainings, and they take us through sessions. Right now, I'm able to even evaluate myself. I'm able to tell when I'm low, when I cannot even handle a case. And the other important thing is I've also been given an opportunity to accept that today I cannot handle this case because I'm so emotionally down. Unlike before, the matter is before you. It does not matter how broken I am. It does not matter how I'm feeling that particular morning. I have to handle it. But in the space that the CJ has given us in the current dispensation of justice, I'm actually allowed to say, can I hear this matter tomorrow when I'm okay? We have now counselors in our medical scheme. I can now walk into a hospital without paying. And we really appreciate the Chief Justice for that. So it's accessible, but not in form of training, but as a service and also as a form of creating awareness.
It's a milestone, but do you have such services within the judiciary? Meaning, I know, for instance, you have a registrar.
Yes.
You even have cashiers.
Yes, City. We do have, we actually have a psychosocial support unit.
Good.
And it has been recommended. I think there's even a task force that's working with the Chief Justice because it has been recommended that that unit needs to be upped in terms of the manpower so that you would have someone who would relate well with judicial officers of a certain level and who will not feel like I am telling my junior staff that would probably make a good novel. So there is actually a psychosocial support unit. But to get back to what you've even asked, we recognize that the trauma is not only for the victim and the victim's family, but it is, and sometimes even the perpetrator's family feel traumatized to think that one of their own would be carrying on in something like this and is now being exposed in the public, but also for the judicial officer. Actually, there have been trainings specifically targeting SGBV and how to handle. And part of the reason why we had so much clamored for the specialized courts was in recognition of the longer it takes, the more traumatized. But that we also need our officers to undergo training so that you are not only sensitive to the person that you are handling, but also sensitive to yourself.
Okay.
And also to keep reminding us, to disabuse us of certain biases that we have grown up with, that we have been exposed to. So yes, you're right about the trauma. It cuts across, but that is part of why.
You know,
And just to add on to that, when you talk of trauma, I can tell you there are days that when you leave court and you cry and you can't sleep. That happens every other time. Maybe as journalists, and we may invite you maybe once in a while.
Why did you just invite us?
Yeah, we are inviting you actually in to sit in some of these sessions, because you see, we are here to create awareness, and you may not really appreciate some of these things if you are not directly in contact, so that you feel what happens, the real situation on the ground. If you feel the real situation on the ground on your justice morning sessions, you'll take that responsibility upon yourself, even without us, to speak about some of these things. Because we talk about, in terms of curbing, even the SGBV issues, when we are here to create awareness, we are here to tell people, please stop it. Because when you look at the repercussions, it affects everybody. Judge has explained it. It affects the perpetrator's family. It affects the court. It affects the victim. So it's not really one person who suffers. It's a whole society.
That does.
And maybe that's why then we have the mentorship program that is really also spearheaded by our association, that those of us who have gone through the ranks and have had instances of interaction may mentor the younger judicial officers in how to handle the situation and handle themselves.
Wow.
So mentorship is a big thing for us. Yeah.
You know,
I really
there's
like that.
sorry, go ahead, please.
I really like that, and I think it's also been emphasized in the KJA curriculum that there needs to be a specialized course on gender sensitivity and also SGBV handling. But I'll piggyback to what you said earlier, Judge, which is on the fact that the cases take a bit longer than they should in the court system, and appreciating that the judiciary has put in place active case management. How then do they take that long? Because I would appreciate that the lawyers, the prosecutor, and the magistrate are sitting together and agreeing on how to conduct the case so that it can be dispensed with at the earliest time possible for the sake of the victim, the survivor, but also for the perpetrator, should they be innocent, because at the same time that person is innocent until proven guilty, so that this matter can move as fast as it can through the system. So what is the challenge in terms of hastening the process in court?
The challenge has been, remember that the specialized courts were just launched the other day, and the first one was just in Shanzu about 2 years ago. But the challenge has been that it is not only the SGBV cases that are handled by a judicial officer. Those matters go before a magistrate, and that magistrate has other matters as well. To the Kenyan, every court case is important.
Yes.
So that we would not want to send the wrong message when a litigant or an accused person comes to court and make them feel that your case is less. Because for them, it is a matter of their liberty and their freedom. Which was why then the SGBV courts came up, courtesy of being pushed for by our association. But the challenge has been getting the numbers. You talked about trauma. Having one magistrate hear that kind of case every day, 365 or 280 days in a year would do something to them.
Have it all.
Yeah.
Imagine.
But yet we recognize that there is the flip side of it. The longer it takes, the more traumatic it is for the victim.
Yeah.
So we are pushing for a situation where let's have these specialized courts, but let's also have the numbers so that even the magistrate who would be sitting there, if they sit and have to handle other matters, the matters do not stall. We have numbers so that it moves. We know that there are countries that have tried it and would wish to, probably the Kenyan type and benchmark. Yeah.
Yes.
But it is something that has worked in other jurisdictions. We have court users committees that would help us think through We have trainings that we are going through, and our association has had many of those, to sensitize the judicial officers and the other stakeholders, because it is not just the magistrate sitting to hear those cases. Sometimes it's the police file missing, the doctor is who feel the P3 form is not available, there's been interference with the victim, all manner of things contribute towards the delay. Sometimes the advocate has not turned up or has a case somewhere. So there are many factors that can be attributed to this. But the best would be to get all the stakeholders together so that we are able to push for a more expeditious way of handling. But our starting point would be the specialized courts.
Sure. I mean, the makeup of all of these cases is very important, and the practitioners of that as well, and how they're involved and how they're affected. I'm looking at what then is the matter of the stuff of some of these cases, whereby women judges and magistrates then adjudicate over some of these cases. And one thing springs to mind is looking at the age of some of these perpetrators as well as the victims. As you mentioned, the ages of those that we are finding in prison today, between 18 and 30. And comes to mind Justice Odunga and what he recommended at some point when he talked about, look, why are we looking at a minimum sentence of 10 years for anybody who's involved in any kind of case, sexual assault? Now, we know that a child under the age of 18, a child is a child under the age of 18. Somebody who has sex with him or her then is charged with a criminal assault, with a criminal offense, by virtue of the fact that their age. Whether you bring in the aspect of consensual or not, we also say then somebody under the age of 18 is not able to give consent because they're still a child. However, it then, with this Justice Odunga case, then brings in the sensitivity that we speak about, especially when we started this conversation talking about women judges and magistrates. Would that come into play here? Because we have far too many cases of this thing where it is a consensual relationship, but we have young boys a day shy of 18, 2 days after 18, being thrown in prison for something which they honestly did not see as an offense. How are we dealing with that?
That one, I want to applaud our good judge who is before us. She delivered a very good judgment on that. And for me, I have adopted that, and I don't struggle with that. My only duty is to say there's jurisprudence, and one of the things that women judges are doing is to create jurisprudence, and judge has done that. So the issue of Romeo and Juliet, I think it's no longer an issue before us.
What is jurisprudence?
Okay. Jurisprudence is when courts make decisions that give guidance, that resolves issues. So we can, yes, it's a precedent, rightly put. Yes. Yeah, you know, when you use precedent and jurisprudence, sometimes those terminologies are hard for the Kenyans to hear. So it's just decisions.
Kenyan, yes.
Yes. We are now talking to the ordinary Kenyans out there.
Yes.
So she came up with a beautiful, beautiful judgment. For me, I call it judgment of the year.
Can you open it up for us a little bit?
The judgment?
Yes.
That is I think it's SOPO 1 of 2017.
Right.
Yes.
Speak to it if you can.
If you would,
yes,
please.
I would speak to it. And this is a very unfortunate situation where, especially in the rural setup, first of all, currently, 22 is the new 18. The level of maturity shifted, but the ages remain.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, in the rural setup, you find a young man who has gone through primary school and is unable to pursue their education beyond that. And the easiest thing is either to become a border rider or a fisherman. And those trades have money. in their context.
Yes.
And after a while, the young man's mother will be asking him, with all this money, why are you cooking for yourself?
Should have a wife.
Now, you tell me, if my 17-year-old son brings home a 30-year-old, I'll pass out.
Surely.
He's been bewitched. Well, who will he look for? Someone younger than him. Yeah?
Of course.
So it is that kind of Romeo. And you know, in the village, girlfriend, boyfriend is actually husband, wife.
Yes,
you know, if you even try to woo the other person's girlfriend, they'll tell you, wachana na huyo ni bibi ya fulani, right? So when you have that kind of situation, how then can we help this young generation? Because the law remains what you said, 18 is 18. For the Romeo and Juliet, 17 and 15, there's no consent. These are children who actually need guidance, right? And they should probably be taken through some counseling. But because the law is the law, and because 21 is actually the new 18, 25 is actually the new 20, then we must reach out to them. We must reach out to them in the schools, in the areas where we find these certain age ranges, and be able to tell them, below 18, there's no consent. And girls have also become aggressive. It is a matter of fact. We must reach out to the girls and explain to them, when you throw yourself at someone, when you blackmail, and this generation, blackmail is a big thing. Or if you don't want to sleep with me, I'll go to the next person.
Yes.
So we have to reach to both the boys and girls and just, first of all, sensitize them on the fact that below 18, there's no question of consent. But that will be hogwash unless you tell them of the consequences. And the consequences are dire. That by the time you are proving you are 17 and not 18, you've been in the system, you've been in remand, you have gone through the works, then you have to go for age assessment. And just depending on your physical makeup, you may be 17, but you look like 25.
Indeed.
So that once you come to court and you're telling me you're 17, I'll not buy that. I'll say that you should go for age assessment. So all that traumatizes a young person. So why not reduce this traumatization by sensitizing them at the earliest, by going to the schools, by mentoring them and empowering them, so that we reduce that. But yes, the Sexual Offences Act is a very harsh legislation, and we would want to have a lot of discussion around it. I think the NCAJ committee is already working around looking at the Sexual Offences Act and making certain recommendations. So I will not go into that because I'm not in that committee, and we have a representative in that committee.
You do know that the judicial system is lagging behind the health system. Because of HIV, this very thing we're discussing, the moment a young person was HIV positive, especially a young lady, had a child, you now became a mature minor. And you were managed and treated like a mature person. And why? As you mentioned, the lived experience was this person as a child.
So they cannot be a child.
You're not going to, the details in this particular matter, you park it aside. And then the issue of children, because of HIV, where you find households being led by grandmothers or 17-year-olds. I know of instances where you have a 17-year-old with 3 wives, and they're all younger than him. Okay. And they have children. So now, again, it's in a rural setting. Again, fellow's a fisherman. So you look at the law and you look at the lived reality, and you're saying the law is being left behind here a little bit. And this person is going to be disadvantaged because these are special circumstances, and he's not the only one. And the law doesn't cater for this because it's circumstances that has forced this 17-year-old to be the head of the household. He did not want his parents to do that.
True. And I think also on the flip side, in the urban setting right now, because of the infiltration of technology, people being on social media, people are getting girlfriends and boyfriends earlier. This new generation of people are very mature for their age, way beyond their age. So you'll find that they're engaging in conduct that is adult conduct. So yes, you have the dynamics in the rural setting. You also have the urban dynamics in the urban setting because of technology being westernized, being cultured in a bad way, I would imagine, because some of these things were a preview of when you get married, but now I think everyone is doing it, so why not? So how then do we ensure that the criminal justice system does not criminalize everyone under a certain age, and as such there will be no one within a certain bracket, because we're all in the criminal justice system, for having engaged in conduct that everyone else was engaging in? I am not promoting it. I'm just saying it is the lived reality that we are in.
True. You want
Go
to
ahead.
go first?
No, go ahead.
Okay. What you're saying is true. And happily for us, we are actually working with several development partners. And in fact, next week we will be having a meeting, a 2-day meeting, just to sensitize and have discussions around SGBV technology and the digital world. And among our partners are IDLO and Equality Now, because we recognize that what City is saying, we are lagging behind. There are those opportunities, there are those spaces that if we shut our eyes to, we will be singing to the birds. Yeah. So you're quite right. But we recognize that, and happily again, our development partners realize the critical role that sensitizing judicial officers in a structured manner really is needed, and have roped us in. Yeah.
And, look, what I think, even as we wrap up this conversation, it's encouraging that what would have been seen as a rigid system is actually thinking and seeing the reality on the ground, and then being able to adjudicate with that information in mind. And I think it's exciting to see that that can actually happen, then moving on into the future, and then we start to see, an open system, really.
Does it not lend itself to what we're now seeing as a lived reality, that having a female Chief Justice is an enormous advantage to the judicial system?
Definitely.
Oh, yes,
it is.
Definitely.
Our guests this morning have been Honorable Lady Justice Helen Omondi, who is Judge of the Court of Appeal and the President of the International Association of Women Judges, as well as Honorable Renee Kitagwa, who is a Principal Magistrate at the JKIA Law Court. Thank you for being here this morning, and these conversations indeed must continue. Until the next time, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Asante Sana. We'll look at what's happening in the news, and then we'll come back. Conversations continue after this. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga. Former Mandera Senator Bill Okero says any new policy introduced by the government must first be examined on its impact on the cost of living. Okero says that the Kenya Kwanza government has failed to examine this factor and continues to introduce new charges without involving the public.
There seems to be a disconnect between public servants and the situation on the ground, the reality on the ground, the way Kenyans are suffering. So every department comes up and says, we want to charge this, and we want to charge this, and we want to do this. They don't look at the impact on the cost of living. For example, this week alone, IDs, Minister of Internal Security, then the Ministry of Land revising fees, APA announcing review of the rates. Then we had the Ministry for Roads announcing, the CS Roads announcing that they're going to start charging toll charges on major highways. This is only this week alone. KRA on all small goods. And this is happening every week. There seems to be a desperation by the government to collect revenue.
His father says that Kenyans have been paying taxes for the same services. They are being charged highly.
But the irony is that governments are there to provide services to public. This is why I agree with the opposition leader, Raila, that we are not supposed to pay for every service that we get from public service. That's why we pay tax. We pay tax to government so that they can provide services. That's why when you go to a government office, you expect to be given service. You cannot be paying taxes, paying that officer sitting there, your salaries and everything. And when you go for service, you are again being told to pay for that particular service. Pay for this ID, pay for this form, for this transaction. Every activity that the government officer is doing for you, you pay for it again. This is madness.
The Ministry of Health has entered its fourth day in the mobilization and free treatment of neglected diseases in West Pokot County. The NDI head says they are celebrating 20 years since diseases such as yellow fever, sleeping sickness, kalaza, among others, were detected in the region.
So tunatumia hii kambi kuweza kuangalia kama hawa wagonjwa wako hapa pamoja na sisi. Zinaitwa neglected diseases. Hizi ni magonjwa yamesaulika au hayajulikani sana. Sasa utapata wagonjwa wenyewe hawaelewi hiyo ugonjwa wako nayo. Madaktari wenyewe hawawezi kuzitambulisha vizuri. So kwa sasa kwa leo tuko hapa ili tuweze kuzitambua hizi maugonjwa na tuweze kupatia wagonjwa hao matibabu wanayohitaji.
Health expert Kimani Shege says statistics show that more than 70% of Kalaza disease infections in the country affects West Pokot County residents.
We have Kacheliba as the main treatment center. Tuko na mahali ambapo tunasema ni satellite center ambao unaitwa Sigor. Pia kuna matibabu inaendelea Turkana na the burden for last year was 670. We've already clocked 500 for West Pokot this year. Kwa hivyo inamaanisha takwimu zetu zitakuwa karibu hapo 600, 700. Kwa hivyo kuna hiyo burden ya kalaza katika sehemu hii ya Kenya.
Forests and Climate Change CSO Ipentuya has ruled out the suspension of the Okoa Misitu initiative that was rolled out to save the Kenyan forests. Tuya said criminal elements were taking advantage of the initiative to destroy the forests. The announcement came after an outcry from residents and leaders from areas bordering the forests after the implementation of the initiative. Police in Siaya County have launched investigations into the mysterious death of a middle-aged Boda Boda operator whose body was found inside a pit latrine. The man's body was discovered lying in a pool of blood, and he is suspected to have been murdered by unknown people before the body was stuffed inside the toilet. County Police Commander Kleti Kimayo says his body had deep cuts all over the head and they are awaiting a post-mortem and identification. And finally, on the international scene, a Boeing 747 en route from New York to Belgium was forced to turn around after a hose got loose in the cargo hold. The cargo flight operated by charter airline Air Atlanta Icelandic had climbed to around 31,000 feet when the crew contacted air traffic control in Boston to report that the horse had escaped from its stall. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's 2 minutes after 8 o'clock and we're looking at traffic. Still in the city, it's actually quite heavy as you're coming on Langata Road, heading out towards Uhuru Highway. It looks like it's going to be there for a minute. Some of that is going towards Raila Odinga Way. And are you coming off of Thika Superhighway? I am sorry, because traffic is heavy and it's all the way through towards Survey and then heading out towards Muranga Road. And that's going to be there for some time. So if something happens after 7:30, traffic hour starts and boom, everybody's everywhere. Coming off of James Gishoro as well. Some traffic heading out towards Waiaki Way, and it is very, very busy. We'll keep an eye on things. Let's know what's popping, where you are this morning. We'll talk on Spice FM, KE on X.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning. It's 7 minutes after 8 o'clock and into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. Where are you tuned in from around the country and indeed around the world? Our live streams up on Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and as we look into our following conversations this morning, technology, it's big, it's everywhere, it's around us. And what are we going to be able to do with it to be able to make the best of our experience here on Earth? All right, as we get into the hour, step up and shine with Kiwi. There are puddles everywhere. It's raining, but you can still shine with this brand that you've known since you were young. And getting into the year 2024, and you're going to ask yourself questions. How are we going to make it? Well, Kiwi says you can step up and actually make it. I want you to go into your supermarket this morning, today, this afternoon, through into the weekend. Get a tin of Kiwi with the new logo design. Buy a tin of that. And then look under your lid, you will find a code. Come back to the starburst on the tin, and you'll dial *459*5#, and you will win airtime or data instantly. You will then also have an opportunity to enter the draw. The draw then means that you could win 35,000 shillings that goes towards school fees come January 2024. And voila, you could actually be in a place where you don't have to worry about much, and you can actually step up and shine with Kiwi. All right, we're getting into a technology conversation this morning, and our guest is already seated. And Bernard Wanjao, before I tell them who you are, I'm just going to say good morning. Good morning. Karibu sana to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Bernard is the Data Center Solutions Specialist at Dell Technologies, Southeast Africa. And it's good to have you here because we'll be having an AI conversation. AI, you know, it could have, if we're talking about cattle, it would be one thing, but we're talking about technology, so it's another thing. Artificial intelligence, buzzwords that have been around our space for the last decade or so, and probably more pronounced after folks sat in some kind of silos when COVID did its thing. And then when the world opened up, this thing blew up and everybody was everywhere doing things. And so we're getting into that conversation today, and we're looking at AI and machine learning solutions. So there are learning solutions, and looking at how Dell Technologies is championing some of those. As we get into that, because it'll be a fun conversation, you know, hang on, and seatbelts, absolutely, seatbelts on, because it's going to be a fun ride here as Bernard walks us through some of these things. But before we do that, CT always has a proverb from a different country every week. Okay. And he's taking it away.
Yes, the whole of this week, our proverbs will be from the country of DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. You inherit from the dead, not the sick.
Okay, profound.
Yes. What does it mean to you? How would you interpret this, Bernard?
Wow. Okay. So, first of all, good morning, everyone. It's really good to be here. I'm an avid watcher of you, by the way. So, really great pleasure to join you here today.
Asante, you are home.
Yeah. Well, feels like it. The city is a bit warm, so I'm sure it's probably an indication of how it's going to be. But I don't mind the heat. It's cold outside. So this saying, this proverb, I think is has several dimensions. So I'll kind of just interpret it how I hear it now, and also try and align it to maybe something we are going to be discussing today about really determining the real state of things.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So my first take of it is that it's not over until it's over. Don't start counting probably your eggs,
chickens until they hatch.
Chickens, or whatever the case may be. Don't. And it can be a double-edged sword. I think inheritance is typically seen as gaining something good, property, wealth, but also it could be inheriting, I think, also problems that are not solved.
Yeah, indeed.
So
That were
careful
not solved in death.
what you might be looking forward to, or maybe not. But it's not over until it's over. Now, there's another angle to this, which I think then comes into how do you determine when that state changes, right? Sick and passed away, dead. That sometimes is also controversial. And we are saying today some of the technologies that are coming to bear are helping humans to be able to make some of these decisions, really decision-making capabilities, enhance our decision-making capabilities. Because without getting too into the medical field, sometimes people are declared dead before they are
actually dead.
Yeah,
real dead.
But then we have systems that could potentially be able to assist those kind of situations. So I mean, we can look at it. Probably can speak about it half an hour into all the dimensions on this. But
if Segway was a man, it would be Bernard Rajao. Oh, fantastic! I like the way he's just gone into that. CT's handing out points. 1 million points. Do with them what you want.
Purchase
what you
10,
like.
The beauty of asking for someone's opinion, it's not possible for them to be wrong, because they've just given us the opinion and the understanding of it. And so it's correct. So if it were an exam and it was out of 10, you'd get 10.
Okay. Thank you.
Every once in a while, you have people who actually exceed the 10.
Yeah.
Yes. But those are usually on the way to writing a book.
It reminds me of back in the day when we used to do compositions. And I remember my English teacher in high school telling
teacher of English.
Thank you, a teacher of the English language.
Okay, thank you.
I was one such person, so
I didn't get an A in English.
I understand.
You were close, but not there. But they said you can never get 100% in composition.
Yeah, they say it's still now.
I was very confused with that. It didn't. I've never reconciled that because it's my story.
Yeah.
It is how that teacher was taught. It is. And pedagogy, as we know it, sometimes can be limiting. The truth of the matter is, if somebody told a story that was uniquely theirs, there's no reason why they should not have gotten 10 out of 10.
Indeed. Solutions is what we're looking at today. Artificial intelligence, when it made its debut on the world stage, is said to be something that was going to present solutions across sectors. Whether it was in research, whether it was in education, whether it was in governance. It was seen as this one-time panacea for everything. So maybe as we get into this and what Dell Technologies is actually doing and what the world is expecting, let's just start from a very basic. Again, I think it's important. When we talk about artificial intelligence, and now we're looking at learning solutions, artificial intelligence, essentially intelligence that is cooked up by a human. Artificial. What are we talking about here?
Okay. What is artificial intelligence? So there are various ways of describing this. And so far in my career, I've been in IT for just over 20 years now, working in various capacities, starting from technical support into services, and then into the engineering or the solution designing and that kind of field, which is where I am today from a specialist perspective. One of the things I've learned during that period, I'm getting to your question, is listen and also keep it simple. Now, there's always a challenge. City would probably attest to this, but keeping it simple means you need to understand it.
You are so very right.
Right?
You are so very right.
So AI can be described in very technical terms, but I'll try and keep it simple here. And I would say it's basically using technology to enhance how machines, devices interact with humans. Okay. Now, that interaction has been traditionally quite, what would say, basic, whereby the machines do mechanical work, the humans kind of instruct them on what to do, programming, coding, things like this. And they're going to do various activities, right? Various tasks, typically mechanical tasks. The human is going to be the one to do the decision making and the thinking. So now, what artificial intelligence is really intending to do, and what we are really gunning for, and we are really making a lot of strides in that area from an IT industry, is to change that into actually machines themselves, or the systems themselves doing the decisions, and more even the thinking. So we're already quite a bit in that direction. And there are many examples, and I'll try and keep this as practical, meaning giving practical examples of some that the public may not be aware is happening, and some that are quite obvious in terms of this is what's happening today because it's in the social medias, it's trending and all that.
So telling a machine to do the thinking for you, why?
Well, it turns out, that we've known that machines, computers, even calculators, let's say even when we were kids, and and even now, are able to do specific things much better than we can, faster than we can. Take a lot of data and analyze it. Take a lot of numbers and add them, divide them, and manipulate them, right? Your Excel program from Microsoft, right, which is a partner for Dell, is able to do a lot of things for the last decade and a half, amazing things. In fact, they say we're only using about typically 5% of its capabilities, right? Because it can do a lot, but you have to instruct it on a lot of things. And sometimes you need special skills, special language to be able to instruct it or not to do. So macro language and things like this. Not many people have that. What if you could just describe in human language, in English, what exactly you're looking for? And then it gives you that presentation, these charts and all those kind of things.
All right. So what you're telling me essentially that where we are going with technology and what it will be able to do, learning solutions, because usually, you go for the interview and they say, okay, what office can you use? You say, yes, I know how to do. I can use Word, I can use an Excel, I can do whatever. But what you're saying now is essentially with this technology, for example, I have 1,000 people in my database and I want to categorize them according to who are my clients, who are my prospects, and who has paid, who has not paid, kind of thing. You're saying that we can get to a point where I speak to a machine and I say, categorize my clients for me according to A, B, C. And this machine, essentially, in terms of a solution, will give me a file where all of these categories have been done.
That's exactly right. And in fact, I'll take it a step further. Let's say you actually have described your business and your objectives, your KPIs, your targets. And then you have this system that you have deployed within your organization. Let's call it a model, right? A model basically is what I'll describe is basically a way the machine understands your environment and is able to produce particular types of outcomes, right? But then you have described your objective for your business in summary. You give it a bunch of data. Without you having to say, I want to see 1, 2, 3, it may actually be able to give you the key information that you need to extract from there and even recommend what your marketing plan should be, your product enhancements, the sentiments in the market about your organizations and the services it's producing or providing to the users, because it's able to collate all this from social media, and it's able to bring all this information together in a coherent way that now it's making decisions, or let's say recommendations for you to do 1, 2, 3 as your biggest impact actions. This is where we're getting at now, which even if you look at it from let's say a different perspective, we have autonomous vehicles today on the roads.
Yes.
Not in Kenya, but they are there. I mean, everybody knows about this, either personal vehicles that are autonomous, or even taxi services that are doing this. Taxi will come and pick you up and there's no driver in it.
Yes.
It will make the decision of how it needs to get to the location you need to go to fastest. You don't need to think about it, you don't need to instruct it. It will make decisions along the way according to what it's seeing. Those are decisions it's making, and really at the end of the day, you're entrusting those that are riding in it, they're entrusting their lives into it. Businesses are going to be doing the same, and in fact, many of them are already doing it, including media houses. And we'll talk about that in a moment in terms of use cases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. When you talk about the self-drive cars, I've always argued from a legal perspective in terms of liability. Who do you then sue because there was no driver? Do you sue the car? Do you sue the software?
Or the manufacturer?
Do you sue the manufacturer? Who exactly is liable in such an instance? But I think that's a question of now AI manufacturing software liability.
Absolutely.
The legal conundrum that creates.
Oh, yes.
But mine was on actually security and data protection.
Okay.
We have a machine that is churning out information that is more or less driven by itself, because now it has learned you, it has understood what you want as a company. So it is giving you the information you need, and it assumes you need.
Yes.
So at what point do we then consider security, privacy? We don't want a situation where potentially now that could be manipulated because it is its own system. So how do you factor that in?
That's a very good question. In fact, let me first of all appreciate your angle about the legal aspect of it. That is, to put it simply, work in progress, because there are really liability questions, it's a conundrum in some cases. Somehow, some jurisdictions have found a way around it, whereby the organization that is deploying this technology is taking that liability, but also they're also arming themselves to ensure that they're limiting their risks as well. So there's a lot of monitoring. Everything is recorded, because sometimes fault can be outside of the system. So they need to actually be able to also identify that and be able to defend themselves. So there's a lot of that aspect of care and auditing and logs and all that kind of stuff, right? However, so AI doesn't exist by itself as an island. It's actually a combination of various systems, which include the security stance of how you manage your data. And that management of data is how you collect it. What is it you're collecting, right? Because there's also privacy aspects to this.
Yeah.
Then how is it being processed to the point where it now can be used by the model to be able to generate? You know, we talk about garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
And we've seen various iterations of this kind of situation where we talk about hallucinations and things like this on the chat bots, like you know, the ones that are out in the market today. An example of one, I don't know whether CT was the last time you used a chatbot.
Maybe you ought to ask, have I ever used a chatbot?
Okay.
Get a little bit more basic. I think come back here.
I'll come back here. So if any of you have ever used, I'll relieve you on this one here, but I'll provoke you on some other questions as we go. If you've ever used a chatbot, and I just happened to look Spice FM up, specifically Situation Room, and it's interesting what it was talking about, because in one case, one of those chatbots does not believe Ndu is female. It insists there are 3 men here, and Do is a lawyer coming from somewhere and it insists. I asked for pictures. It gives a. I mean, it's an
misogyny
interesting thing.
personified. I think even this chatbot
Well,
is
you know,
patriarchal society. Or
exactly.
Please.
So to the point, if I was, this is a publicly available free service from this chatbot, but let's say you're providing a service to your clients who require or use this data for very specific use cases, which can be legally binding, and you produce information that is not, or this system produces information that's accurate. Do is already bringing a lawsuit into this kind of a situation.
Yeah, my representation is to my right.
Yeah, right. So that has a capability of really affecting the confidence of that system, but also could have repercussions even financially. So how do you manage that? It has to be a very carefully managed pipeline of how you manage that data. And really data is the key. It starts with data. In fact, when I'm going to be describing what Dell Technology is doing in this area, we really focus on a key area which we have been doing for decades. You know, Dell is a 40-year-old company. Most of that time, we've really been managing data for customers. In fact, most of the critical data in this world is actually on Dell systems, in storage, backup, and things like this, archiving. But how you manage that data into then being able to produce tangible, credible, trustworthy information through this almost autonomous system is very key. Because otherwise, your internal staff, your customers, basically, when you don't trust that system, it's not going to be used.
Okay.
And thus, it's useless based on how much investment you've put in there. And there's a lot of investment that goes into these systems. Yeah.
Before we go to a break, I want you to start to introduce us to some of the solutions that we are talking about. What are some of these things that we are talking about that this intelligence, which you've already established, then is making bare that we can now say, this is a solution, this is a mechanism providing this solution that, you know, that Dell is involved in even today?
Okay. So one of the things I left out about AI is that it's really a general purpose technology solution. When I say general purpose, I've had this mentioned, by the way, that it's akin to electricity. The way electricity came about, right? So there's a lot of resistance, doubt, it's dangerous and all this. In fact, we are in that stage right now. But when I say general purpose is that it's going to be used in unimaginable ways. We can't really even say these are the 3 ways or 20 or 1 million ways you can use it, because it's really going to be embedded in everything. So what is the solution for AI? Really, what we're talking about here is how do you drive AI within your organization and incorporate it into your processes, into your products, and into your services. This is actually then mostly a service, but it's driven by infrastructure. So Dell is in the space as a technology vendor. And we talk about end-to-end technologies that we've been doing for decades, right? For data center solutions, endpoint solutions. Some of them are here in the studio. Endpoints where basically you're using, or users, myself, I'm using an endpoint that's the most productive tool today in business, which is your laptop or your tablet and things like
Also
this.
known as endpoint.
Also known as an endpoint.
Okay.
Also known as an edge device.
Okay.
But this is how humans interface with technology, mostly. Of course, we have mobile devices, but these are the most productive. From there, all the way into what those devices are connecting to in some form of data center, whether it's here or in the cloud. That whole system is where actually AI is running on. And to be able to do that, you need compute power, you need storage, you need networking, you need data protection, you need security, but also you need skill. That packaged together is an AI solution. Right? So we'll be talking about basically what Dell is doing in that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, let's take a break. We are looking into AI and learning solutions this morning. And Bernard Wanjao is walking us through some of those things and looking at then what are some of those solutions and how then can we get in touch with them. We'll take a break at this point and look at what's happening with weather and traffic at 29 minutes to 9 o'clock. It continues right after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It won't start.
A liar calls Ben Low, Ninter, Yeninter, you Makati Kadikta. You know this character called Liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him, who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And he must blame it on Adam, not me. Because Adam messed up and he was told, no, you fellow, you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest and we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
With politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. Highs of 22. We'll see highs of 23 in Nakuru. Highs of 23 as well in Nyeri. Looking at mostly sunny conditions in Eldoret, going to highs of 24. And let's look into a heavy rain situation in Mombasa this morning, 25 degrees, and it's 23, and also partly cloudy in Malindi at 27. Into Kisumu, where it's sunny at 23, and Kakamega is sunny at 21. We're looking into a mostly sunny Kampala at 21, and Dar es Salaam this morning is partly sunny at 26. We're looking out into a mostly sunny Mogadishu at 29, and it's 17 and sunny in Addis Ababa, and mostly sunny at 16 in Johannesburg. Lagos is cloudy at 25, and Kinshasa sunny at 23. All right, all kinds of busy throughout the city this morning, coming off the Thika Superhighway. Still heavy as you come off that GSU junction and then through towards the Survey Junction. Kiambu Road still busy. Ruaka Northern Bypass coming in, and everybody joining with what's coming off of Gigiri Road with that construction, and then out towards Limu Road on one side and then past Pangani on the other side. All right, Langata Road started off really, really busy this morning and likely continue for a period. All right, we're going to watch out for those two spots right now. Coming off Uhuru Highway shouldn't be too bad, not at this point, but you'll see your pockets of traffic as you get through the morning. We're going to keep an eye on things. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on X and keep things moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Artificial intelligence conversation this morning at 24 minutes to 9 o'clock. And Bernard Wanjao is with us this morning from Dell Technologies. And we're trying to understand some of these things. And it's very interesting for me because, we thought of it before as it is a phone. I pick up the call or I dial, I go. It's a laptop. It's a tab. I finish my work. I send it off in an email. That's it. But now you're introducing us to a different concept where you're saying, this is an endpoint, that all this technology has taken place. There's been an input of data. There's been the application of the intelligence. And this is now the endpoint of all of this into now some tangible solutions for things that may have posed as issues before. Now, we all are curious as to what exactly some of these things are. What problems would we have before that now Dell is giving us solutions in this space for learning?
Okay, good question. So endpoint, I know I dropped that, and it's really actually a very common industry term in terms of where the technology actually meets the user. And that could be the laptops, the desktop computers, the tablets, the mobile phones. It can be other things like your virtual reality glasses, which are now becoming mainstream.
Yep.
It can be edge devices as well. We also call them edge devices. So edge devices is basically where the human is interacting with the technology. So an edge, I'll take it further. An edge device could be even the vehicle. That's an edge device. You're interacting there physically with this technology. It's also where the human being, the consumer, besides taking in, is also inputting their own content into the system, right? So this is where we're getting pictures coming in, we are typing content and all those kind of things, right? And this all comes together into really data moving between, in various forms, between storage systems or data systems and the users who are using that data for something. And we're trying to figure out from an industry perspective, using AI, which now coming back to this, is how do we most effectively use these huge amounts of data that are being accumulated on a daily, every minute. Right now we are discussing with this video running. There's already AI that's in play because we can have someone transcribing this conversation live, right? In fact, one of your media outlets that you're doing this streaming to is YouTube. YouTube has AI running on it, which is actually able to transcribe live without anyone having to type this information out later.
In form of captions and things like that.
Captions, exactly.
Right, okay.
Right? But then what do you do with that, with that transcription? That's data that can be used to search later. So keywords, there was a topic about endpoint, and it will come out because it's been indexed. All this is happening together, but it's not being thrown away, it's being stored. Later on, we need to then use this intelligently to be able to come up with solutions and services for users that are trying to do something with, whatever they're trying to do, research. They're trying to create a system that is able to describe what has Situation Room been doing this year, right? That kind of a thing. And if I put it on my chatbot, and hopefully I'm using the right prompting, it should be able to summarize to me this year or this month, this is what has happened. This is what Ndu's input was. CT made this kind of, statements and those kind of, see, that's all data that's available. But it's been analyzed and structured in a way that is searchable.
If I could interject, that vis-a-vis what we would have to do before, where you would need to have one person who is sifting through hours and hours and hours of footage, hours of audio to be able to find themes. So what we're saying is, if you use the right kind of language, for example, you input it and it will then automatically generate for you what these themes have been over time.
Exactly.
And so that's where you see the solution, that it's time saving, resource saving, and probably resource efficiency and practicability when it comes to looking for something.
That's exactly right. And in fact, now let's talk about a practical use case on this. So I talked about how you have guests coming in, experts, subject matter experts in various fields, and you as a team are there trying to extract some information from them. And you also need to make sure, obviously, that what is coming back to you is factual, something that your audience can actually use. But then you're not experts necessarily in those fields. But how do you then ensure that really what is being discussed is relevant, it's true, and it's also current, right? So you have some endpoints in front of you there, Ndu, for instance.
Yes.
CT is having an endpoint as well. Julie is having also an endpoint there.
Yeah.
This may be there waiting for you to input something, but also they could be actively listening in and doing the transcription, but also doing the cross-referencing. So when I say, for instance, Dell is a 40-year-old company. It's a 102 billion annual revenue company. And we are growing as well at a rate of, let's say, 10% quarter on quarter. Those are facts. But then as I'm saying this, it should be something flagging or green saying, okay, everything that's being said here is actually factual because it's cross-referencing information. It's going to the Dell website, it's looking at the financial reporting, it's looking at various information that's actually out there in the public domain. Because then you'll be able to catch, wait a minute, you're saying this, but you're saying you deployed this, but it's not actually online because it's clearly saying that nothing has been deployed in this area. In fact, we have satellite images right now that are showing it doesn't exist. You know, a project was created, we have already deployed, we've commissioned it, it's live, it's going, everything is working great, right? So those kind of situation awareness.
I see what you did there, and I like it.
So you see how, okay, so this is an example of how the technology can come to bear because really the information is already there.
Yeah.
What we are missing, which is to your question earlier, is what solution can we bring to bear to be able to then enable you to be using that kind of technology.
Right.
That's where Dell comes in. Now, a quick introduction to Dell, right? So many of your users may know Dell as the PC laptop company. And there's good reason for that. We are much, much more than this, but this is where our beginnings were from an organization perspective.
Yeah.
So Dell, the man, the founder of Dell Technologies, back in 1984, started actually building PCs, assembling them in his garage. Started off with $1,000 and just started his small company and started building PCs. His vision was basically to ensure that technology is available to all in a cost-effective, reliable, and quick manner. So fast forward, he deployed the first e-commerce platform to sell PCs. So you can basically go online.
Yeah.
At the advent, this was early days of internet. Go online and actually just order your PC and it's delivered to you. This was different from how things were being done before, where you have to go to the shop, look at it, okay, it will come, you come pick it up or things like those, right? It was a different paradigm, but it was supposed to be really democratizing technology, availing it to everyone. Fast forward to today. I mentioned already the size of the company today, annually. Dell has 133,000 employees around the world. 160 million units are basically shipped in the last 3 years alone in form of PCs, laptops, servers, storage systems, networking, backup or data protection systems. So basically what I'm getting at is an end-to-end IT company, not just PCs.
Okay.
Most importantly, I think besides the products is also the services. In fact, out of the 133 staff members that Dell has, most of them are actually in the services side, which is the support, R&D, and deployment teams. Because really technology is how to use it as opposed to just having it. So we have a lot of technology on the table here. Like I said, a lot of it is passive. So, but how do we then make it active?
How do you activate it? Yeah.
This is the skill set that comes into play. In terms of R&D, which is basically how we bring value to this. And I'll talk about that because AI is a lot of R&D involved in it. So in the last 3 years, for instance, Dell has invested $7.8 billion, this is factual, on R&D. I'll stop there just to mention that what we're doing on the AI space here And we believe we are leading in this initiative because organizations are trying to grapple with the question, how do I bring AI to bear to in my organization? I've given a couple of examples, even just here in the media, in the situation room. So how do I do it? What we've done is really come up with a way to accelerate that journey to get AI enabled within organizations.
Okay.
By doing what we have been doing quite a lot on other technologies, being able to deploy validated solutions. We package together what I mentioned, which is the computing capabilities, the storage capabilities, the security aspect of things, how we interconnect them together from a networking perspective, protection or the secure data protection of the same.